Okay, so today I'll talk about some applications in finance and also for venture capital. All right, and let's see how I do it. Um, um, so how do I do this? Okay, so let me just make a quick remark on the deep learning and the black box that sometimes finance people complain and how we use deep learning to quantifying intuition before I get into actually the AI technology. Um, and today, especially, I'll use vision as my main toy, but there are, of course, other things that are also in the toolbox. So the first thing is that you probably have seen a lot of this in the news that in recent decade, starting with in 2016, AlphaGo, there was a game playing machine that beats a human world champion. Since then, they have made AI program to beat the poker champion in Texas Hold'em. Also, a lot of this Pac-Man, Atari, the Nintendo games, they have AI programs that are way beyond human capability and all this. And also, these days, of course, you have the humanoid robots in the factory now. It's starting to get deployed and many things. And not surprisingly, and drug discovery. And not surprisingly, now actually the Nobel Committee is also interested. So they also awarded some people in that area. Okay, so anyway, so the AI is kind of hitting the society big time. And a lot of fields, art, music, sports, many places, even engineering, science, math, they are all kind of trying to see what they can do with this technology. And in economics, actually, in finance, it's starting to slowly adopt it, but it's there's been some resistance in the profession. And one of the reluctance in finance was that sort of AI is a black box. I don't know how they made the decision, whether it's a lending decision or whatever that is, and they're fairly reluctant to do so. And here is sort of my 5 cents on the past experience in engineering of dealing with black box, and nevertheless you don't want to ignore it but embrace it. And here is an example that I was a former mechanical engineer. And here's something called turbulence research. Turbulence is like in an airplane, if you get the turbulence when the airplane jitters. So the airflow getting very unpredictably unruly, it's called turbulence. Okay. At high speed, it just tends to be that way. And people study about that unruly airflow. One area is the people were interested in that is about the sharks. So sharks are, well, predators. They're one of the fast swimming fish, and they swim faster than most of the other fish. And what's interesting is that they do have um, actually a rough skin of, like, say, 100 micrometer. That is about the thickness of the hair of these kind of rough surface if you look into the microscope. And that is interesting because people thought that if you want to swim fast, you'll have to have a smooth skin. So why do they have this roughness? So people actually made a numerical simulation. So they made a shark skin here ideal model and put a numerical grid. So these are all being air and water flow being solved using Newton's law and whatever. Um, and all this. And here is kind of the simulation they got. So there is no way you can, as a human, can understand what this coefficient after solving it, what means. So it's kind of a black box, if you will. But they kind of, after solving that, what once they see what these coefficients and all this will predict, they saw the following, that they kind of varied this kind of roughness here of the skin and make it tiny, make it larger and all this. And at the size of the shark's roughness size here, they found out that there is a eddy swirl. There's a swirl here that gets into the pocket of this thing here. And that actually acts like a lubricant, like oil, if you will, on our user cell. That makes it very make the water flow over the shark's skin, make it a lot smoother because of this swirling water flow actually lets the air glide, okay, on top of it. And as a result, it actually makes the sharks swim faster than actually had it had a smoother skin, which is interesting, isn't it? So that was a discovery out of a black box. It was actually, in fact, so successful that I don't know you remember that, but in 2008 Beijing Summer Olympics, one of the swimming suit, this is Michael Phelps, um, had actually this kind of roughness in the swimming suit, like high-tech manufactured, and it actually outperformed. It actually did a great job and outperformed. And since then, people have been popularized, and rich nations actually manufactured such swimming suit, and it has been so successful. So in subsequent Olympics, actually, it had been banned because it measured how much money the country has than a human ability. So it beats the purpose of Olympic Games. So, but the point is that such black box approach was actually fairly successful. And I guess a similar analogy can be made in finance that AI and deep learning largely can be viewed as a black box, but should you ignore it? I think rather than that, we should find a way to embrace it and make use of it. As I guess one lesson that I actually took from this engineering episode, and people are slowly trying to do that. So I'm glad for that, and we'll show an example of that. Okay, but let me first move on to the vision, the topic of today. So before I get into venture, here is a practical example that some of you may not be going to ventures and become analysts or hedge funds and all this. And here is what my friend at Morgan Stanley, he is a high-ranking guy at a trading desk, and what they use is basically satellite images. Okay, so what they do is that they take a satellite, send images, and it could be a commercial one, and the military grades are actually much smaller, but like a foot by foot is 1 pixel, or it can go below that scale. Uh, but they buy a whole bunch of real-time satellite images, and what they do is that they kind of count the number of cars in the parking lot, for example, every day. And then what they guess is that depending on, and they can use AI technologies and to figure it out whether it is a sedan, pickup truck, minivan. And you can imagine a minivan coming and a pickup truck coming has very different implication of what kind of customer it's likely to be. And out of that, they make a reasonably accurate sales prediction even before the official earnings announcement, all this comes in, and they can trade in advance, isn't it? So this is one way to for vision technology is actually being adopted in finance. And these days, even without the high grade resolution pictures, they actually use the AI technologies to enhance the picture themselves and make even more accurate predictions. So this is one of the examples that actually vision technology is going to become a vital tool in the cutthroat competition of making money here. Okay, so hopefully that's a little bit getting you interested in why we care about the vision. Um, but here today, what I'm going to spend more time is about the vision technology applied to capturing faces. Okay, and I don't know you know such thing, but especially in East Asia, there's something called face reading. I guess in the Western culture there is such thing too. But people try to read something out of people's face, or whether you're confident, your eyes are shaking, whatever. Okay, and even for just the way like eyes and nose and all these things are shaped, kind of reveals something of a personal character and all this. And there has been a profession for thousands of years of face reading. Okay. Um, it's interesting that these kind of things actually didn't go away. And these days we use AI to do this. And I will show you. Okay. So hedge funds, venture capitals, and all those kind of things, they these days do a modern version of face reading using the AI. Okay. So, so let me just show that. So is it for real? And is it just contained in East Asia? That is actually not. So it is actually fairly popular in those countries still. And people try to read a lot out of the face, and even in job interviews that oftentimes companies actually try to factor that in implicitly, knowingly, unknowingly they do. So in fact, there's a countermeasure by this that the job interview, before the job interview, people sometimes oftentimes go to plastic surgery to alter the shape and and try to influence the interview process. And that is not just here. You can see that even here, um, in non-Asian countries, they also do this kind of things, which is kind of interesting. Um, but here is to quantify that a little bit more. Here is well, we basically have seen like a AI company. So this is in some sense trying to do this, isn't it? Using AI technology to read in emotions and these kind of things. This is sort of like already trying to do this kind of using the technology, all right? But here is one of the first research that I will show that people have done. So this was the work done by Yale and Wharton. Um, and what this is that, well, they used AI vision technology to screen a lot of MBA students and um, and try to capture some big characteristics of the faces. Okay, so it is doing AI face reading. So the agreeableness, conscientiousness, extraversion, neuroticism, openness, they call it photo big five. Okay, so out of that, they try to read something to it, and and then they look at the compensation and these kind of things, and you can see that they do show up something. In fact, some of these features do predict the compensation or which actually job they get, and these kind of things they tend to predict, which was kind of interesting. So you can see that people already, like if you will, this is kind of the AI and labor economics and these kind of things. So people actually use the AI face reading to make a prediction in the labor market and how they do. Okay, and it actually correlates also to some extent with performance. Um, it's also interesting. But what these actually, what we call soft information, predicting the compensation and all this, actually sometimes can outbeat other things like what GPA you get and this kind of what we usually use for interviewing people and use for promotion. They kind of sometimes tend to be stronger predictor than these objective measures, which is also an interesting thing to know. All right. Okay. So now let's go to finance. So this is a work done in by some of the finance professors that I know. And and here what it uses is that so you can see that again the AI technology is being used and what in this case they try to so they have a whole bunch of dots here because I mean the AI actually once it sees a picture they try to measure the distance of many things in a face and then try to come up with some numbers and this particular algorithm um, something like head width, eye area, nose area, whatever. And then they try to come up with a rating of trustworthiness. Okay, so some faces I just trust, and some faces you see, I don't know, you do that too, but you feel like it's cunning. I mean, unless you experience a person over time, the first impression, so-called. So they're trying to capture these kind of things. And what is interesting is that this perceived CEO trustworthiness captured by the AI correlates strongly with higher employee ratings. So the employees actually, when they see the CEO, kind of trust them more. Greater shareholder support in proxy votes. So the shareholders actually tends to trust the CEO if it looks more trustworthy, and faster analyst revision of earnings forecast, and they generate a larger number, higher quality patterns and all this. So it seems that, well, on one hand, this face, what expressed in the face, actually gets something what you can hear, some positive performance, in fact, which is interesting. But also by just by that looks, it actually begets uh, indeed some trust, which is kind of interesting. So this is sort of, if you will, in a corporate or in corporate finance and in the capital market, how actually AI and perceptive vision is actually being used. And now people actually use this kind of thing. If this is how people respond, then you can see that people trading stocks will also factor this in because whether they're right or wrong, this is something that they will kind of use, isn't it? Um, so, um, so this is something that they kind of use. Okay, as if that is not enough, so let me now um, get into the venture capital. So this is a work done by one of the person, Caroline Genk, is our own finance faculty who joined last year. So it's a venture capital expert, and she usually uses venture capital data. And what she did was that she also used AI to capture the faces of a lot of startup founder photos, okay? And then did similar to the previous story that captured the trustworthiness and also in addition dominance and attractiveness of it. And then link it to the funding chances linking with the VC data and how it turned out to be. And interestingly enough, it actually tells something about it in that the more, we can see here, the trustworthiness actually and the the financing and the no financing and VC-backed financing here, you can see that the founder trustworthiness and the VC-backed, it seems that it gets more VC financing backed here, right? You can also see that the dominance kind of matters too, indeed. There are some variations in other factors that we already know, like gender matters, the team matters, industry matters, and all this. But what it is interesting is that the soft information of the faces of the founder actually turned out to be giving some meaningful prediction. And they predict, here we go, funding amount, whether they get to the follow-on financing like Series B, Series C, and all that, or the longer-term outcomes. They are all kind of these faces actually can tell and make a predictions out of that. It's kind of an interesting thing. So you can see that here the venture capitals actually now do use a modern version of face reading, if you will. Um, and I guess you have done the pitch meeting interview, and now you can see, I guess, I don't know whether you experienced that and you went to just a meeting, but if you, the venture capitalists do go through many, many meetings, and um, and some presentation you get the impression of the founder and get more confidence out of it, and you don't know what it is, and it's very difficult to articulate, but this is sort of being captured by this deep learning and AI methodology here and actually be quantified and translate into, well, capital decision, okay? Which is which is interesting, isn't it? All right. Okay. So this is about AI using the AI vision technology to read and get some information about the faces, the looks, the first impression, if you will, that kind of gets used. And people get ahead in the financing game out of even this, using this information. Okay. Okay. So now actually we'll go a little bit on one step further and then quantifying pitch style. So we have seen the pitch meeting and the CEO presents and there are even TV shows for that like Shark Tank, isn't it? So and how does that impact and influence in the funding decision in Shark Tank? Who gets the funding, who does not, isn't it? And if you watch those TV shows, like some people are really good at presenting, and then it seems like wow, this guy is going to make it, and something like that. Um, but it's difficult to articulate what it is, isn't it? So can can we systemize that somehow? So this is sort of like quantifying the pitch style, if you will. And let me actually make a quick remark on the style. So I guess this is like quantifying the black box, and I'm just drawing an analogy from a different discipline that actually also uses AI. So for some time, even in the field of art, okay, they 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 have been actually quantifying what is called a style, musical style. So, for example, the musicians and computer scientists joined the team and learned, trained, and deep learned a lot of Beethoven music. And then eventually that deep learned model, a machine, actually is able to compose a music that sounds a lot like Beethoven-ish. Okay, so Beethoven style, if you will, have been distilled and extracted out of Beethoven music so that we create our own Beethoven to create such music. And they did the same thing for Mozart, fake Drake, like this, which is like, and if you think about it, it's that even with the same note and melody or rhythm given, um, and I'm not sure you have seen such YouTube. You can make a little star, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star sound like Beethoven-ish, Mozart-ish, Haydn-ish, Chopin-ish, depending on how you make the arrangements. And these guys can be extracted. So style is actually a function. It's like not just the note, but out of the note, how does it will sound is actually kind of a function out of it. And what musicians did was basically, for example, they they kind of measured once you quantify Beethoven style and Mozart style, they were able to measure how different Beethoven is from Mozart. Is it more closer than fake Drake? Is Beethoven closer to fake Drake or Mozart? Something like this is what they did. Okay. So and traditionally, of course, as you probably can imagine, we usually measure the distance by historical chronological order. There's a Baroque music, classical music, Romanticism, and modern music and all that. Um, but here you can actually pinpoint how different is Beethoven from Mozart because you quantified what Beethoven's style is and Mozart's style is. So you can actually measure the distance. And they can do their own zoology of musicians and musics uh, based on these kind of quantified measure, um, which is interesting. For economists, and how do we make it, is actually also very relevant. Like Van Gogh, Picasso art style is like that. So in fine art, they also did this. But it is something like, again, going back to the point that this black box is actually can be very useful because it can capture something called style. That it's very, for humans, it's very difficult to in words articulate what it is. But when I hear a music or when I see a Picasso, I know it's Picasso, isn't it? When I see a Van Gogh, I know it's Van Gogh. It's very difficult to, in words, describe it. And the deep learning and this complex model basically kind of captures that idea that we have hard time describing it. Sometimes we call it intuition, style, and all this. And it can be useful in the future, and people are trying many things in the sense of like what is management style. So there have been a lot of research in finance and management about what is management style. And you can imagine, for example, if we are able to capture those kind of things, then what is Steve Jobs' style? How does it differ from Tim Cook? Okay. And then once I capture those styles, I can actually like right now in the AI innovation, Tim Cook is doing some kind of research policies and all this to lead the Apple company. But hypothetically, I could imagine what would have Steve Jobs done if AI innovation is here? We can hypothetically run that experiment, which is kind of interesting. I mean, Tim Cook himself would like to know what Steve Jobs would have done, isn't it? And reference that. Um, or if it is an M&A, for example, like if I have my own style, and if I'm over to take over a target company, um, how would um, how would that company look like under my management? Okay, something like this. Right now, Apple is there, and is Elon Musk closer to Steve Jobs style or Tim Cook closer to Elon Musk style? My guess is Steve Jobs and Elon Musk share a lot in common. Um, and then you can imagine hypothetically, what if Elon Musk runs Apple, how would look like? Does it make sense to take over the firm and like an M&A? So you can think about it. Or like the Fed policies, like if we capture Alan Greenspan's style, and then we can hypothetically run, instead of Jerome Powell during the COVID pandemic and his policies, what would have Alan Greenspan had done, isn't it? Even Jerome Powell would like to know what Alan Greenspan would have done, and then would think about whether I should do that too. I should have done that too, or something like this. All right. So anyway, so deep learning can be very useful in capturing a style, and this is where I go to my last example of which is um, persuading the investors in a video study. So this is a work done by Yale professors. Okay. And what they did is that the pitch meeting we do, okay, there are actually pitch meetings that are being recorded. So they kind of deep learned away thousand um, pitch meetings. And they actually did it a little bit more systematically. They decomposed and extract the visual styles, meaning how the facial expression, we just did the face reading and all this, so they kind of capture it's not just like the attractiveness and all this, but how confident you might look like, and these kind of things, because it's a live video out of taking like thousand pictures, and measure how confident you are, engaged you are, how many times you're blinking your eyes. All this are being captured here in the visual cue. Also, they distill the voice information separately. So how confident your voice sounds, is it the low tone, high tone, and all this. And also they look at the words, like what we call natural language processing. The choice of words, is it like assertive words, or are they kind of like the more reserved words and soft spoken and all this. And here is actually an example. So what the deep learning captures in the visual cue is that here is um, some highly positive verb visual feature, and this is sort of like a low kind of feature. Even in the voice, like if you see the recording here, here's a very high arousal pitch, and here's a very low arousal pitch. So it can basically discriminate and distill out of all this Shark Tank pitches they do. In fact, they did use what's called Y Combinator. Okay, Y Combinator is like an online-based venture capital, if you will, an accelerator. So they tend to put the pitch. The founders post the pitch on YouTube, and then Y Combinator screens that and make a decision out of it. Okay, the Y Combinator was founded by Sam Altman, if you know that name. He's the founder of also OpenAI, along with Elon Musk. Um, and so these Yale people basically parsed Y Combinator video pictures to basically try on this. And they link it basically to the funding outcome. So eventually out of this queue, and then they come up with some kind of parsed kind of metric, visual, verbal, vocal metric, and then try to link that metric to the PitchBook data, the venture capital financing data, and try to link it. And all this kind of visual, verbal, vocal kind of scores tend to beget funding or not. So long story short, what it begets is that they basically show me a pitch, I'll tell you whether you get your funding or not, isn't it? And again, I am telling you, this Y Combinator was created, and they probably didn't by accident ask them to post the pictures on YouTube, isn't it? That Sam Altman is the OpenAI, the AI guy. And if you think that OpenAI is not aware of this kind of possibility, you probably are dreaming. Uh, they are probably very aware, and if they haven't tried already these kind of things, I would be surprised, isn't it? So you can see that the modern version of venture capital actually becomes very high tech, and they pass way beyond just the traditional numeric things that are done a team member and all this, and they try to quantify soft information. Um, like this pitches how confident and trustworthy they are, and also link it to their funding decision, isn't it? Now that we have such machine prediction machine, even if we do a human interview and pitch meeting, we can always feed that video, pitch video into this machine and then try to reference, okay, the machine kind of predicts and thinks that it falls short, although I had a good feeling. Where does it fall short and all this? So this can be used for that to reference my own decision against what a machine learned decision of what many other ventures did. As well as from the founder's perspective, it's a good practicing device, isn't it? If you're ever thinking of going to a Shark Tank or accelerator meeting, you do your presentation and then run to this machine, and then you can see, okay, I am falling short in this. I'm blinking eyes too much. That looks very shaky and all this, and you can correct yourself basically on this. I mean, you could imagine these kind of things can be done with job interviews and all this too, isn't it? But here is basically my example of showing you that. It's sort of cutting edge research in the venture capital area that we actually do quantify visual vocal information in making the funding decisions, right? Okay, so I do run a YouTube channel and for my deep learning class. So you're welcome to try here. Um, and today I'm going to basically show you some quick petting zoo of example of thank you. So and I'll let you basically try this emotion. I'll show you what the other things do quickly, but I will have you actually run this code and see for yourself that this is not some rocket science and all this. This AI technology, the scary part and why it has such a widespread impact in the society right now is that it basically democratized high-tech skill or technology and made it accessible widely to the general public. Meaning, it used to take a computer science expert to do this kind of parsing and video analysis and all this. Now, actually, it can be done by a high schooler or maybe your next door neighbor. It actually became very accessible, which is the scary part. So the experts are actually losing edge in some sense, which is the depletion, erosion of the white collar jobs edge in the labor market. But so I will show you one example of how even you, if you never touch Python whatsoever, actually you can run these kind of things. So let's get to that part. Okay. Okay. Um, so, so can you see my computer screen here? So I want you to do the following. So I will basically have you run a simple Python code. It doesn't take too long and it's not too hard and it's pre-recorded, pre-programmed. So I'll let you just try to run it and see for yourself. But we'll do it with our own faces. So here's the thing. Of course, there are many other ways of doing it, but I will borrow Google, the company's California or Nevada server there, um, and run the program there. And the way Google did it, because they own Google Drive, you can just run it from your Google Drive. I assume that everybody has a Google account and have Google Drive, isn't it? But if you don't, okay, and you need your personal Google account, accounts google.com and sign up. No, accounts, sign up. Okay, let me just type that. I'll put that in the chat box. I'm sure you have and get an account if you don't, but I assume that most of you do have it. Type your name and make up your email name and password, and then you will have an account. And once you have a Google account, of course, um, once you have a Google account, then you can have access to Google Drive, isn't it? Something like Google Drive, okay? Now, if you go here and Google Drive. Do everybody follow? Google Drive? You have Google Drive? Okay. Um, so next, let's set up the AI programming environment. And the Google not only offers Google Drive, but they have something called Colab, okay? And you actually have to get an account. And how do you get an account is that you type Colab research google.com. Okay, Google Colab research.com. I will type it in the screen here. So, chat window, you just got that. If you type that, then something like this will pop up. And I will just type a new notebook. All right. So this is already, so there's a Python program, if you will, 1 + 1, and then type an arrow. Um, it is basically it can run on your Google server of Python, so it gives an answer too. Okay, so this is a very simple way of doing it. And the point is that once you have it, you can change your name here. Like if you just drag your mouse here and click it here and do it, and let's say test by program. Okay, like I do this. And if I save it, the moment I save it for the first time, so I save my program here, the moment I saved it for the first time in my Google Drive, there must be, so my drive, there must be a folder named Colab Notebook being created. Okay, so again, I'm creating, well, I sign up my account and then collabresearchgoogle.com. If I do this and actually create a new notebook, okay, then the moment I save it, that notebook, a Colab notebook has been produced. And if you go there, test my program here is actually being saved. You can see that, okay, inside the Colab notebook. Okay. So I want you to go to the Colab notebook folder here in my Google Drive. So now a Colab notebook folder has been created. Okay. And on our class Dropbox, actually, I saved a program already. So I did a program here. I want you to download it. I download it. So downloading. And I want it to be inside the Colab Notebooks folder. I want you to drag it and save it. So if I leave it here and save it, okay, it will basically in the Colab Notebooks, that program will be saved, which is here, okay, which is here. Now, actually, I don't need to do much. I just double click on it. The Colab program that I already typed in for you is actually here, okay? And now I am going to, so watch me what I do. Let me just stop share. Watch me what I do. I am going to take two pictures of myself, two face selfie of two pictures of myself, okay? One with my regular, just serious face, and another one smiling. Okay. And then my cell phone, I am emailing to myself. Okay. I'm emailing to myself and um, did it. Okay. I actually did it this morning. So I took two selfies. Okay. I took two selfies. Um, and where is that? If I go to my email, I already just emailed to myself. I basically have here two of the files here. I am going to download that on my hard disk drive, and I'm going to, the first one, the serious picture, I'm going to save it as my face. It's actually important because I read in this kind of name, my face. The JPG is capital JPG in my program. I don't know how it works for you. So you might actually. And the second file here, the smiling face, I am downloading. Okay. And here is, and I'm going to name it my face underscore smile. Okay. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to my Colab notebooks in my Google Drive and drag them to save it. Okay, I'm gonna save it. Okay, so here are my two files, my face smile and my face JPG. Okay, they just happen to be, I just did it this morning, so it's a slightly different clothes, but and the smile is the smiling picture. But these are in my so I have three files: my face smile, my face JPG, and then that program I uploaded on Dropbox that you should download, and I opened it up. Okay, here. Okay, so how do I run this code? Here it is. This arrow, see, if I go here, scroll down, there are some of the text for description, uh, but the one that if I go over in the cell, it's run cell by cell. So this kind of play button, if I click it, it will actually run this program on Google server. Okay. So right now, what this block does is that it basically reads and checks whether I am in Google Colab and tries to check the machine. Okay, so that's what it does. It takes about, I don't know, 30 seconds. It's done. Now here's some text. And then the second block here, it basically installs some libraries. What are libraries? The Google engineers to read faces and all this kind of things, they actually wrote already programs that I can just call. I'm going to use that particular program that is being programmed by the Google engineers. I'm basically telling my program to do this, and this is what it does. So this is basically downloading this program on my code here. The next thing is I want to access my Google Drive, and I don't want everybody on Earth to do this. So the Google actually does the following. It actually asks my permission. Do you want to access your Google Drive? And only I can. If I'm signed into my account, I can only approve that. And now I have access to my Google Drive on Google server, where I did saved my pictures, which I'm going to read. Okay, so okay, now I got the approval, so which is called mounted. It's I am accessing, my program can access files in my Google Drive. Okay, and then here's the first thing. Let's read in the pictures. Okay, so this code reads in the picture. You see that? My normal face and smiley face. Okay. And then there's a code that detects my face and cut out the face that matters. Okay. So this code basically does that if you click on it. So you can see here what it did. It detected my face, and this is the portion that is relevant for the code to read my emotion. So it cut it out. And the smiley face too, it does the same thing and cut it out. So these are the things that it will read. And then finally, it will run this code here, which the Google engineers wrote, which basically read the emotion of the two faces and pictures. So for my normal face, let's see. So it's kind of thinking now, looking at these pictures, and the code is thinking. All right. And let's see. So it'll take probably 30 seconds or so to do the thinking. Okay, I think it's kind of starting to do. Okay, it's parsing and doing and processing. All right, here we go. So the regular phase, it's basically the percent. So it's 95% neutral. It's not angry, not sad, not happy, not disgust, not fear. The second picture I have, uh, this picture. Uh, it is 98% happy. It's not neutral, surprise, sad, disgust, or fear. Okay, so you can see that it reads the information, and then you can just plot it also in a bar graph. So here I just happen to plot it. So based on different categories, it basically the machine read that the first picture was more of a neutral phase, whereas the second one is a happy phase. So that is sort of how it's done. Okay, so that is the version of the petting zoo that I thought that you might do. So you can actually load your own picture again, name it my face, and the other one, smiling one, my face underscore smile, and put it in your Google Drive. Okay. And then the code that you run it will basically do the job. Okay, so this is the Peding's experience. Just to wrap up, let me just show you what other things they do. Okay, so here are some other things. It can, of course, this code, so it's a similar code, basically capture where in a picture is a face. Okay, so it can do these kind of things. In a photo, it can capture even if there are multiple faces, it will basically detect, oh, these are the faces, and then it can capture them. So this is like can do detecting faces these days, the AI program. Um, it also like the face reading, not only detects, but it basically can dot about 100 dots, and then you can measure the dimensions. So these dots are all numbered from 1 to 100 or so. So this is how our face is analyzed. And if you wonder about your cell phone's facial recognition lock, it basically measures particular dimensions of this photo. So they also put a dot when you take a picture, and then tries to the lock is basically made out of this way. So you can see that the code is not superly long. In fact, these days anyone can actually run this kind of thing. Finally, the video analysis. So this is actually done a project by a student who went to JP Morgan, but the Yale professor's video analysis code, I'm just going to quickly browse through. So there are a bunch of codes that Google engineers already wrote it for you. And here you download a couple of videos they did. So here are 7 videos that have been downloaded for the test case here. These are the title of the video of the pitch, the company who pitches. Okay, so there are 7 pitches being done. And the videos are saved in a folder. What it does then is that it basically captures frames and for each of these videos. And you can see that for each video, about 5,000 still images are being captured out of this long video, 10 minutes video each. Okay, so these are the still images. And then we are doing the same thing which we just did. For each photo, we are analyzing the faces, whether confident, shaky, fear, something like this, and do this. So basically, this is an example of capturing for a video um, various scenes of this, and you can see that these kind of photos then can be analyzed of what is it angry, is it disgust, is it fear, happy. So we do this for thousands of videos in a pictures in a video of this. And out of that, those kind of things are being stored in the data and now actually becomes sort of what we call machine learning. You can basically run a regression, if you will, to correlate it to with the venture capital data, whether it got funding or not. So you can do this here. In this case, they did it with neural network and trained the model and basically had like 71% accuracy of give me the video with 70% confidence. I will tell you whether you'll get funding or not. So this kind of thing was done. All right. Okay, so this concludes my quick overview of how AI is being used in um, in venture capital and finance. All right. Okay, so let me stop the recording.